Well, good afternoon, my friends, and welcome back. Cumberland Outdoorsman back here at my workbench, getting ready to tackle a little project that I've been wanting to do for a few days now. As you well know from my previous videos, I recently acquired this sporterized Mauser Model 98 chambered in 260 Remington. And what I'm going to be doing today is attempting to show you how I install a custom side swing safety, just like the Winchester Model 70. What it has on here now is the military style safety, and it interferes with the scope right here. So we're going to do away with that and install a better functioning safety that'll make the gun safer, it'll make it easier to use, and in my opinion makes it more aesthetically appealing. What I got in the mail the other day was a product made by Wisner. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Or Wisner. And here it is. Go ahead and open this package here. And we're going to be going over the instructions, how they want you to install this. Now, I've done this several times before in the past on the rifles that I own. And, you know, this is a disclaimer. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, then get a competent gunsmith to do it. But I'm going to show you how I do it. That's not necessarily the way they recommend here. But now, looking at the instructions here, I can see that these instructions call for some special tooling or machinery, and it gives you the dimensions of how far to cut and how deep to cut into the bolt shroud. Here are several illustrations where you'll be making some cuts into the military style bolt shroud to convert it from this military style safety to a safety that's much more suited for the sportsman or the hunter. And that's what we're doing here. You know, if you have a Mauser 98 that's in original condition and it's in good shape, you know, personally I wouldn't alter it, but I bought this little rifle the way it is now. It had the aftermarket stock already installed. The bolt handle has already been altered to clear a scope. The barrel, the 8mm Mauser barrel, has already been replaced with this 260 Remington barrel, and the trigger system has been replaced also. It's got a Timney adjustable trigger for hunting purposes, and that's what we're doing here. That's what this channel's about. It's about sporting use, you know, for hunting, varmint shooting, target shooting, things like that. You know, this is by no means to enhance the military capability of this rifle. This gun has been converted from a military rifle to a sporting rifle. But that being said, if you own an original Mauser 98 that's in original condition, I would recommend not doing this. You know, keep it in original condition because that's the way it's going to retain its value. But, you know, like I said, being that this gun was already altered, I have no problem installing a custom safety on here because it's just going to make it more functional for me as a hunter, you know, as a sportsman. And looking at this instruction sheet here, the method that I'm going to show you is by no means the only way to do it. It's just my way, you know, so you make your choice. This calls for several different cuts and holes to be drilled into the bolt shroud, the military bolt shroud, to convert it over to a hunting or sporting rifle. Now, if you would rather, they also make a 2-position and a 3-position bolt shroud with the side swing safety already installed, already manufactured that way. And all you have to do is unthread the old bolt shroud and put that new shroud on there and you're set to go. You're ready to rock and roll, so to speak. But I'm going to go through some steps and show you how I install this. And it's a somewhat of a deviation from the original instructions, But like I said, it's worked for me in the past. So follow along if you're interested. Okay, folks, the very first step you need to take before doing this is to make absolutely sure that the rifle is unloaded. No rounds in the chamber, no rounds in the magazine. And you need to remove the bolt from the action, and on the left side of the action right here, you have the bolt release. So you just pull that out and then hold it, slide the bolt right out of the action. Just like that. Now we can set this gun aside. Second step is to disassemble this bolt. Not hard to do, just need to have a little know-how here. What we're going to do is engage the safety here, and what I do is I just grab the sear with my vise very lightly. You don't want to tighten down on this, just to hold it in place. Pull back and let that safety be in the upward position. Okay? You don't want to damage the sear at all. Now, there's a little button right there. You want to push in on that button and just unscrew the bolt shroud and the firing pin assembly. Set the bolt aside. Now we need to disassemble the firing pin assembly. Once again, all I do is put this in a vise, and I don't tighten down on it. I just have it where the vise is up against these shoulders here on the firing pin. I'll pull down as far as I can, turn the cocking piece right here, and then ease up on the tension of that mainspring. There's the firing pin assembly and the mainspring. Now we'll set this cocking piece aside, and you'll need to remove the factory safety, the military style safety, from the bolt shroud. Just turn it all the way to the right and it slips right out. Now we have the bolt shroud that we're going to be working on. This will be the center of our focus right here. Okay, now according to these instructions, the first step you need to take is to remove the lip to match with the remainder of the sleeve. In other words, take off that little hump right there, as you can see, and they want you to even that out with the main part of the lip, the front section here. But I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that. Okay, here I've got another Mauser that has this custom safety installed, that I installed, by the way, and I left this part intact because I could see that that little lip there actually provides more support for this safety, so that there's no movement up and down. You know, it actually gives you more surface support right there. And then after that, they want you to drill a hole right here, which is what I do. Okay, I'll make sure that that hole is centered, and they want you to drill from the bottom up, which is the way that I would do it. But what I first do is I use a smaller drill as a pilot hole to make sure that I've got it positioned correctly. I know that it's necessary to do it to be able to use their milling saw here to be able to cut through that steel, but we're not going to be using that. I'll show you how to do all this with a Dremel. It's just a notch that you have to cut very precisely, but quite easily with a Dremel, right into the top part of the sleeve here. And then you've got a secondary cut down here where the bottom of the safety rides right there. And as this cocking piece is retracted and held back by the trigger sear, when you pull this lever back, this flat part right here, let me point to that right there. This right here is what engages the cocking piece that holds the firing pin. And that keeps the firing pin from traveling forward and making the gun go off. So that's a really good safety. But I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll drill the hole first of all to make sure we're centered. And then we'll go and finish the other steps of cutting through and relieving this bottom piece here. Now you're going to need a good quality drill and tap. And the tap that they want you to use is a 6x48. And that's what I have here. You need the right tap to match with this little screw that holds the safety in. Okay, the safety lever. So make sure you get a good quality one. Don't get a cheap one, because you're going to have to cut through some pretty hard steel. But I've done it several times in the past, and I've never had a problem. Alright, before I get started in drilling and machining on this bolt shroud here, I thought it would be appropriate to bring one of these bolts out that I have worked on before in the past to show you how this system works. Here you have the main bolt body. Okay. Here is the firing pin spring, the main spring. And here we have the firing pin right here with the bolt shroud, the cocking piece, and the part that engages the sear, and also this custom side swing safety. I wanted to show you how this system is supposed to work before I start going into this here. Now, when you get ready to load the rifle, it's going to be in this position. The bolt is. Okay, the bolt's going to be in the down position. As you lift up on this bolt handle, down here you've got what's called a cam. Okay, the cam of the bolt. And what that does is it cams this part of the cocking piece rearward, therefore putting the firing pin in battery position, and that puts strain on this mainspring right here, so that when it's released it drives forward, the pin hits the primer, and the rifle fires. Now with it in the rearward position here, you can see that this side swing safety engages this cocking piece right here and blocks it to keep it from traveling forward. That's what makes this type of safety so effective and very positive functioning, because it can't go forward. You got a piece of steel right there blocking the forward travel. And then to put it into the fire position, you just have to flip it forward. When you pull the trigger, the sear releases the cocking piece, the firing pin drives forward, and the rifle goes off. Okay, so that's how this is supposed to work. We'll go ahead and take it apart, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit just to show you how I installed this. Okay, you've got a slot cut on this side all the way through from the rear. Okay, and that slot has to be the same thickness as this piece right here. Right here. This is what goes in the shroud body right here. Okay, and then the pin that we're going to drill the hole for goes all the way through the bolt shroud, out the top, and through the hole right here. That's the way that's supposed to work. Alright guys, I forgot to mention, there is one part that I'm going to have to anneal right here at the bottom, where I can drill through, and also the top. to soften that metal just a little bit so that I can get a drill through it. So let me go ahead and heat that up. Okay, I can see that metal starting to turn just a little bit of a dull red. And that's about all we're going to need. Okay guys, I got these holes drilled through here, and I got this top one tapped out with this gunsmith tap here. Let's see, what's 6 by 48? 6 by 48. And now it's time to test out and see if my screw will fit in this hole the way it should. See if it'll screw in there. There it is. Get a light on that. There you can see that mounting screw going right through the middle of that hole there. And there it is protruding through the top, which is okay, and there it is flush with the bottom. You'll know when it's right when you're able to take your caulking piece here and it goes through there unimpeded. That means there's no burrs in here, and the screw is also not sticking through the bottom. Okay, and that's the way you want it. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove this screw, and I'm going to start making my cut. And what I do, I just use a Dremel like this right here. And I need to cut a slot about halfway across that hole right there, the plunger hole, or where the original safety went through, right there. That's where the original safety went through that hole. And you want to make these cuts nice and straight. That's my first cut. Now it's just a matter of widening that cut to 0.125, and I'll use a different grinder for that and work my way up until that piece right there fits in there absolutely perfect. Now remember, this metal is going to get hot when you're working on it. So let it cool down a little bit, and then once it cools down, you can commence to working on it. Once I get these cuts made, I'll show you the final result, and we'll reassemble this bolt shroud. Okay guys, now it's time to make the second cut, which will be right here, right below this initial cut that we made. This is still too tight to go in, but it's awful close. This part of it, it'll go in, but on this end here, it's still a little bit on the tight side. So I'm going to go ahead and install it part of the ways right now. And that's the way the safety is going to sit. So what I want to do is go ahead and install the safety into the slot that we made right here, and we'll mark it with this file right here. And we got to make a cut that diagonally goes across right here to get that relief right there so that we can swing that safety back and forth. And I'm not going to start right where I marked it. I'm going to start above that, okay? Because I can always work my way down. If I get too far down, I can't work my way up because the metal's no longer going to be there. You want to take off a little at a time and check yourself each time. You just go a little bit at a time and check it. Okay, I'm well above that, well above it. So I'm good to go there. So I'm going to work on this for a while, and then once I get it down, I'll show you what I've got. Okay folks, here I made the second cut that I was talking about in removing this corner section right here off of this bolt shroud so that we can swing our safety back and forth. This was the first cut right here, this relief right here, and then this was the second one. Now we'll see how well this safety will fit into this original Mauser shroud. Get the screw tightened down, and well, that's really close. That's where we want it. Let's see how well it works with the firing pin installed. Okay, that's the way it should work right there. No interference there. Okay, that's the way it ought to be working. What I did up here is I added a little bit of metal right here, and then I re-tapped it again so that the screw has some more threads to engage, because honestly when you take that down it's very thin right there, you know. So I wanted to beef up the metal right here a little bit and make that a little sturdier. I'll trim all that down to where it's smoother anyway and polish it. But that looks pretty good, folks. That's really close. I'd rather have it a little bit tight than to be too loose, because I don't want this handle right here flopping up and down. You know, I want this to be a little bit snug, not where you have to use a lot of force, but you can see how precise those cuts have to be. You know, that's pretty critical right there, getting those cuts just right. Because if you don't get this cut perfectly, you're going to screw up your shroud, and then you'll be forced to try to find another one. And I'll be honest with you, I have messed up a couple of these before I got it right. Okay, but that's part of the fun, is learning how to do this, you know, and getting it right. So that's starting to look pretty good right there. Now I'm going to go and polish everything, and I think I'll be ready to glue it and get it all reassembled. So I'll see you then. Now we're going to use this polishing wheel here. This is a real fine wheel, and polish this surface right here. Okay. Not bad. That's about the way I want it. Okay, now that I've got this fitted pretty well, I need to drill a hole that will be oriented towards the top of this old spindle hole here. And this is a 5/32 drill bit. And you don't want to go very deep, about 1/8 of an inch or so, and that's deep enough. Okay guys, to be fair, I actually had to put this in a vise to drill this hole. Anyway, we'll take it out of the vise. And we'll set it aside here, and I'm going to clean it out. Get the shavings out of there with this cotton swab. Try to get all these shavings cleaned out of this thing, because I think we're ready to give it a test run here, assemble it. Put a little bit of mineral oil in here. Put a few drops in there. Now, you want to orient this plunger where the thin side will be towards the top. Let me zoom in and show you what I'm talking about there. You can see that hole's kind of offset right there. You want the thin part to be towards the top. Okay. And by the way, that's the way you want to orient your drill bit, towards the top of that spindle hole, just like I mentioned. There, got that installed. It's kind of a tedious little job, I'll be honest with you. It's not for the faint-hearted. Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. Let's see how well this thing's going to work. Huh. Perfect. Any play up and down? No play whatsoever. Did a perfect job. Look at that, guys. Now all I got to do is re-blue it and get it put back together. I'll zoom in on it for you. That way you'll know what it's supposed to look like. That turned out just right. Okay, instead of just using cold bluing, I'm going to go ahead and heat blue this piece here. I do this with bolts and fasteners and things, and since this is such a small part, it should glue up pretty good. Start down here and I'll move my way up. I'll get a light on it and you'll be able to see it turn. This actually helps the metal blend in. With the overall color of the shroud. Now you can see it's starting to turn now. Okay, now I'll spray a little bit of this Prolong on here. That'll help darken it up. And it'll also heat treat it a little bit to return some of the temper to that steel. And I'll let that air cool and get it reassembled. Okay guys, I got this bolt reassembled with the new safety on here, but there's something that I need to include in this video that's not in the instructions. Here, when I install this bolt into the rifle, the safety is not going to function right now because I need to cut a little relief right here. Get zoomed in on that. Right here, folks. I've had to do this to my other rifles. Just a tiny section right there where this safety lever engages the cocking piece. And what that does is it'll cam it rearward and hold it in place instead of the sear holding it. So I'll show you how to do that. Now, one step that I didn't go over was how to take down this little tensioner on the side of the Mauser shroud. It's just a spring-loaded tensioner. Let me zoom in on that. All you have to do is push down on that, just like that with your thumb, and then move it over with a small screwdriver, and then put your finger in front of it because it's going to pop out of there, and then that piece comes right out. You want to clean that out real good, oil it, and put it back together. But it's a fairly simple design. But I just realized I didn't go over that when I originally took the bolt down. Now, to reassemble this, put the spring back on to the plunger. Let's turn it around here. Well, that's correct. And then reinstall it into the shroud housing, just like that. Then once again, just push in on it with your thumb and rotate that little peg over through that slot right there, and it's reinstalled. Alright, now I need to take off just a small portion right here of this bolt so that that safety can engage that, and that's real easy to do. Okay, the first step you need to take is to once again disassemble this bolt from the shroud and the firing pin, the mainspring, and this cocking piece. So what we want to do is then reassemble it without this mainspring here. We're going to leave that out. Okay, so all you want to do is just slip your firing pin right into your shroud and then screw everything together here. Okay, we'll go ahead and install this cocking piece just like that, and then you want to put it into the fire position just like that. Okay, slip it back out, and there you can see the safety is blocking the cocking piece and the firing pin. Now, we're going to reassemble the bolt into the rifle just the way it is now. Go ahead and slide the bolt back into the rifle just like that. Close the bolt. And you can see that the cocking piece is held by the sear. When you squeeze the trigger, it travels forward. When you raise the bolt, that recocks the firing pin and the cocking piece. Now you can see where this safety, if I hold pressure on it, my thumb being what's holding pressure on it instead of the spring, that safety is interfering right there with that cocking piece. Okay, so I need to mark right there on that cocking piece where I need to relieve a little bit of metal, and we'll do that now. You can use a marker, but I like to use a scribe where I can scratch it right there. Okay. Now we'll set this aside. see my mark. And I'll use my Dremel here just to relieve a little bit of metal right there at that corner. And once I get this done, we're going to reassemble the gun and see if it works. Well, my friends, that pretty much concludes this part of the project in fixing up this little Mauser 98 chambered in 260 Remington. I got this safety perfectly installed, and as you can see, it works flawlessly. That's the fire position, that's the safe position. It's a two-position safety. And in the safe position, the bolt is locked down, okay? Now there is another modification that you can do to this bolt where you can have the safety on and be able to lift the bolt handle and unload the rifle, if that's what you opt to do, you know. All the other Mausers I have, that's the way I did it, but I'm not sure. I'll probably leave this one the way it is because it's just working so well, you know. There's no play whatsoever. No up and down play. You know, that's the way you can test to make sure you did it right. And there's no wiggling back and forth here. It's under tension all the time. So, you know, if you have some mechanical dexterity and you feel like you can tackle this little project here, let me tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. But if you do it correctly, the way I did here, even though it was unconventional, I did not use a mill, I used a Dremel tool. And I just took off a little bit at a time until I got it just right, you know. You can get a good, well-functioning safety that makes the rifle very safe. Now I can take this little gun deer hunting and keep it on safe the whole time I'm walking around, whether I'm going to my stand or if I'm still hunting, and I don't have to worry about that safety slipping off. It's going to stay on safe, and I don't have to worry about the gun accidentally discharging. And then when I get a shot at a deer, I can flip it off and take my shot. Well guys, I'm sure you can tell from the fading light that I need to go ahead and close out this video, but before I go, let me say thank you for coming along and watching. I hope you learned a little bit from this video and saw something that is somewhat unconventional, but still will work just fine. So if you like to go hunting, fishing, camping, shooting, hiking, no matter what your outdoor pursuit happens to be, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And until next time, also remember, hit that like button, smash that bell icon, and subscribe. That way you'll know when more videos like this one will be coming your way. So until then, y'all take good care of yourselves, and God bless. I'll be seeing you.